Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are on a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com.
All right. He is known by many nicknames. He is the Enforcer. He's one of the Four Horsemen. He is Tony Schiavone's favorite pumpkinhead. And most famously, he's Arn Anderson. But perhaps my favorite nickname is the one he does not know. We're calling him behind his back, Erin Lundy's iPad. Welcome today, Arn Anderson. It's so good to see you. Thank you for taking the time. It's always an honor. And of course, a shout out to Mrs. Erin Lundy for always getting you taken care of to hang out with us. How are you today, Arn?
I'm good, and you can bet she's roaming around somewhere in case something goes south. She'll be here to fix it.
Excellent. We're glad to hear it. We're glad to hear it. So let's kick this thing off. We have a question from our friend Michael McClanahan. Michael, I'm going to ask you to unmute. Guys, this will get a little bit faster after we get rolling, but for now I'm going to have to search for people as we go. I'm sorry. Hey, Michael.
Hi. Good afternoon, Arn. Thank you for taking the time to take my question.
Hey, well, thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
No problem. I'm a big fan of yours, and this is the first time I've been on one of your Zoom calls. So my question actually relates to your time working for WWE. And I was wondering, do you have any specific memories of helping put together the John Cena versus Randy Orton Iron Man match at Bragging Rights from 2009 in Pittsburgh? Because I was actually there in attendance, and I thought that it was a great match and just some really good overall storytelling.
Okay, 2009. Now, is that the one where John tied Randy's feet around the ring post?
Yes, that one. No, that's the one where it was the 60-minute Iron Man match in Pittsburgh, and it was Falls Count Anywhere, and they went all over the arena.
Okay, well, I would have definitely had that match. I don't recall. Do you recall what the last fall was, or how many falls they had?
I think it was 6. I think it was 6-5, and John won in the end by submitting Randy Orton with 10 seconds left, and they went all over the arena. And that was the one where Kofi Kingston and Cody Rhodes interfered in the middle of it, and that was the start of the Kofi Kingston Randy Orton feud.
Okay, well, if we had that many falls, that would have been a pretty involved discussion. Don't know how I felt about that personally. I mean, you go 20, 30 minutes sometimes and two guys can't beat each other. And now you go 45 or 50 minutes and they can beat each other 11 times. I don't know if I agree with that, but it wasn't my job to agree with it. That was what came down. And so my job was to try to make it exciting, make it good for the fans, and make it make sense. Randy was one of my favorite performers and still is. I think he gets it. And I think Randy is one of those guys that he's survived this period of all these big bumps and spectacular moves and all the things that are done today, Randy still sticks to Randy's format, and he has survived the test of time. You know what you're going to get when you see Randy Orton come to the ring, and that's what he gives you. He doesn't try to do anything that he can't do. Of course, I had John from the very beginning for 10 straight years. So the only thing I could tell you is that night, it must have been one of those situations where falls count anywhere in the building, right?
Yep, that's correct.
So we would have had several falls out in the audience, maybe. And I'm trying to remember for you.
Yep, they went up into, that was the unique arena where it was Pittsburgh with the igloo, and they went up into like the concourse section. And that was also where Randy Orton did the thing with the pyrotechnics and almost set the stage on fire and got a cover on John Cena immediately after that.
Right. And it was a launching pad for Randy and Kofi going forward, correct?
Yep.
God, what a break for Kofi Kingston at that time. Without distinctly remembering, I'm sure you don't get a better opportunity than that. So, and we see how that turned out. And Kofi's one of the good guys. If you guys really knew him, you would be happy for him that he got that break, because he is a really hardworking, honest, try to give the fans what they want type performer. And glad that he caught a break in there. And if Cody was involved, that should have been, that's a good deal too, because look where that ended up.
Yep.
I wish I could remember more specifics. I'm sorry.
Oh no, that was great. Thank you so much for answering that. I really appreciate that. That was just thought it was a great match, and I knew you were John's agent, so I really appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate that too. And you guys be my memory for me. You can only imagine in 19 plus years, with that company, how many matches I produced. If you can help jog my memory on some of this stuff with specifics, I would appreciate it, because it all starts to kind of blend together after you get a little older, and secrets out, I'm a little older.
Well, thank you so much, Michael. That was a good one. Up next, I have Rajiv. How are you, Rajiv?
I'm doing all right. Thank you, Lauren. Hey, Arn.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. It's always an honor and a privilege to speak with you, sir.
The privilege is all mine. Thanks for being.
So I've asked Eric about moments when he knew that Lori was the one. So I apologize if you've told this story before on the podcast, but for you, when did you meet Erin, and how did you know that she had to be Mrs. Lundy?
Good question. Very good question. When I first went to Pensacola, Scott Armstrong and I became pretty fast friends. And he asked me to move in with him. And he had a condo, 2-bedroom, that he had just bought. And he needed somebody to pretty much share the expenses. So when you live with somebody, you get pretty close. And I got there around, I think it must have been September, early September or late August. I can't remember the exact starting date, but the Pensacola State Fair is a big deal. It's a big fair. And we had a day off working for that territory, believe it or not. Every Wednesday was an off day. So he said, "You want to go to the fair?" I said, "Man, are you kidding me?" We had one of those in Rome where I grew up, and that was a big deal every year, man. I love to go to the fair. So we went, and we were walking around, and there was a group of young ladies who were it was a school activity at the time, and they were all dressed up and painted up, and it was something school related. But if you didn't know who it was, you wouldn't be able to see through all the paint and costuming and all that stuff. But it's just a group of young girls, and we just said hello, da 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 da. And I just kind of, for whatever reason, Erin was very nice and spoke and smiled. And it's just something I remembered. And when they went on, I said, Scott, who is that? He said, well, da 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 da. One of them's Erin and a couple other names that he happened to know. I went, okay. The conversation came up, a wrestler, da 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 da. Well, as it turned out, Erin's mom was a wrestling fan from way back. And so we got to the Pensacola Auditorium on the following Sunday, or maybe it was a Sunday after that, or it could have been 2 after that. I don't exactly remember, but I was by the curtain watching the matches, and up walked this young lady, and she just said, I remember me. And I went, and then it hit me who it was. Well, there was no paint. There was no costuming. There was the prettiest thing I had ever seen in my life. And it just floored me. And I can't really remember the conversation that much, but she said, yeah, I came with my mom. She likes, come to the matches occasionally. She enjoys it. And I went, I'm just kind of shaking my head all the way through this. She's talking to me. This girl is talking to me. And so would you mind if I called you? And she wrote her phone number down, and she said, sure. And when she turned to walk off, I'll never forget it, she had on a pair of white jeans. And let me just say that, if I can say this, bubble butts were abounding. So she floored me on the way in. She floored me on the way out. I gave her a call in a couple of days, and I asked her, can I take you out? She said, well, no, but you can come over and come over and visit. So I went over to her house, and I went through about a month of visiting with the family. She had 2 brothers and an uncle that probably were not too keen on me hanging out over there, but I got along with the big boss, which was her mom. And after sitting on the couch on my days off and watching TV and getting to know the family, I finally got to start dating her, and knew exactly what I had and hung on real tight. And we're still married today. There's not a day that goes by that I don't thank God that I have her. So it's a true love story.
That's a great story. Thanks, Arn.
You betcha.
I love that one too. Thank you, Rajiv. I wouldn't have even thought to ask, but I'm glad somebody did. Up next is Adam from Bama. What do you have for Arn today, Adam?
Well, Arn, first I want to say go Dogs.
You bet.
But I had to make sure Lauren, she's a big Bulldog fan as well.
No, she's not. No.
Thank you for taking the time out to talk to us.
Well, yeah. Hey, Lauren's a Gator, and you know what that means.
Lauren's not a Gator either. Lauren went to South Carolina, so I just hate football at this point in my life. Go ahead, Adam.
Oh, it's South Carolina. That's right.
Sorry.
But your
So
TV.
I insulted you big time by calling you a Gator too, didn't I?
No, that's okay. Anything's better than a Bulldog.
Oh, God.
Okay, Adam. Let's move on.
Back when you wrestled Steve Regal for the TV title, y'all pretty much went back and forth for the whole time limit. How good was that match, and how good was it actually wrestling Steve Regal?
Well, he beat the crap out of me if you watched it close. That's
Yes.
for sure. And he had that little stooge Dundee running around out there, which was a distraction. Every time I'd get rolling, he'd pop up with that cane and that extra small tux that he had on, the top hat. That alone was distracting. But, Steve Regal was so much better than I was, and so far developed in that European style. He pretty much just put on a clinic and just taught me, for about, and I think we did we go close to 30 minutes?
I think it was 15 to 20.
Okay, yeah, it was something right close to time running out, I think. But anyway, it was long enough that it was a learning experience for me. And my style, mat wrestling, trying to, control an arm and all that, it was a good challenge for me. It was a good blend, I think, of styles. And, Like I said, I learned a lot that day. And Steve Regal, is one of the underrated guys. I feel like, and that's been through the business that doesn't get enough credit. You have to be in there with him. Like guys like that, you have to be in the ring just to feel really how good they are and how polished they are and how secure they are and everything they do. And it was an honor and a privilege to take that beating. And it's just one of those matches that I remember very, very clearly. And yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it as well.
The crowd was so behind you in that match, and that was the best part about it. But they popped every move you did. They jumped on their feet.
Now, were you watching this on TV or were
Just
you there?
No, I was just on YouTube.
Oh, okay. I think the town was Albany, Georgia, if I'm not wrong about that. But anyway, thanks for remembering, man. And, it's a funny thing, and I say all the time how much we appreciate the fans. And I mean it because, guys, you have no idea. These talent trying to have matches in empty buildings is the hardest thing there is because you got no adrenaline rush. If you've ever been in any kind of sports or anything of that nature, when the game starts, you're driven by adrenaline. That's what protects you, keeps you from getting hurt, gives you your energy, gives you your focus, all those things. And when you can see a crowd through a TV screen and feel it at home, you know that you've struck gold. And that was one of those nights where the crowd really was behind me. And man, it just made it easy. It was really fun. So thanks for remembering.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your time, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. All right, back to college football. I need to know from RJ Kruzinski if he thinks that Notre Dame's going to beat Clemson.
Yes. More importantly, for the first time since 1995, the Buffalo Bills will win the AFC East, much to the chagrin. I've been going back and forth with a lot of these jamokes, we'll say, in the chat that, the Pats are going to sneak in. Sure.
We'll see about that. Listen, for everyone who's catching this on the replay at adfreeshows.com, join us on these Top Guy get-togethers. We have the most fun in the chat. You don't even know what you're missing. All right, RJ, what you got for Arn today?
Well, Mr. Anderson, it's a pleasure to chat with you. A longtime fan of yours, going back to the early 90s when you're in the then WWF with Tully. Just a pleasure to talk with you finally.
Thank you.
So just wanted to get your opinion on, for wrestling fans that have been living under a rock for the last year or two, how would you describe and get them to watch the AEW product right now, whatever that may be?
Okay. And I want to see Buffalo get in that final mix too. Something different, Yeah. Let's get something different in there, guys. Surely not the Patriots again. For God's sakes, I guess if you've been a long-term wrestling fan and you've been around a while, you got a little bit of age on you. When WWF/E bought WCW, the business kind of collapsed. It all became almost a monopoly, smaller territories and independents. They were around, but it was not flourishing. And for the longest time, from around 2001 till 2019 at least, everything was driven by the WWE. Now you had Ring of Honor and you had these other companies, New Japan, Impact, all these other, smaller companies that were struggling. But everyone, if you weren't in WWE, you weren't at the show and you weren't making money. And that is not good for young wrestlers. You know, you do not want a monopoly. What if there was only one car company? You know, Ford, that's it. Drive a Ford, take it or leave it. If you don't like it, walk. It scared me to death for the business. And Tony Khan, it's funny, big fan, very successful, him and his father, and a lot of endeavors, you know, soccer teams and bumpers for cars that they, you know, that they produce. And certainly the Jaguars. They came along, and the biggest asset of the whole thing was Tony Khan is a good human being, number one, and he is a wrestling fan. And if you're a fan of the old Crockett days or the Tennessee territory or Texas or Pensacola or any of just old school wrestling, that is what he enjoyed, and that's what he wanted to bring back. And so a little over a year ago, a startup company, AEW, came along, and it was going to be based loosely around parts of the past, parts of the future, and what was going on right now on the independent circuit. A lot of guys with a lot of talent and a lot of potential, more than anything, came from the indies, and they filled up a roster, and it allowed Impact. Once we started being on television and you saw it was like a throwback from the old days, with part of it being just incredible athletic skills by these young guys. There was so much, and there still is so much to watch. There's talent that works for that company that you've never seen before. The thing that floored me is Cody called me. He said, come up here. I want you to come to this show in Baltimore. It was their first pay-per-view. And when I got involved, he said, I want you to watch the product and let me know what you think. And the thing that floored me is there was 30 guys walking around backstage, and I didn't know a single one of them. I don't know where they came from. I didn't know where they had been. It just blew me away that there was all shapes and sizes. And I mean, the diversity of all this talent just blew me away. And they were out on the indies paying their dues and earning their stripes. And now you start watching a show, I don't know who's coming through the curtain next. And to me, I don't know about you guys, but that alone was a selling point. And then you start seeing what these guys have to offer, and, you know, the Scorpio Skies and the Jungle Boys and ECU, who are an incredible team. And, you know, you start to see, I'd heard about the Bucks, but I had never seen the Bucks wrestle. I didn't know about Kenny Omega. I didn't, you know, Hangman. I didn't know about all these guys. And I'm leaving guys out, but the list was so long. It really was, of just guys that I didn't know existed. And they started putting the pieces together and getting some things going. And I said, you have the makings of something that could last the next 10 years and thrive and possibly go into 20 years. Who knows? I know that people want choices, and it has helped Impact flame back up. Ring of Honor, I see, is still surviving. You know, I'm a fan of some of their stuff. New Japan, same thing. I just want to see you as fans have 5 choices, 6 choices, 7 choices of programming. Turn on what you want to watch, turn off what you don't want to watch, enjoy all of it or none of it. But the fact is, we as wrestling fans now are going to have a choice. And that's my impression of what AEW is responsible for. And I'm very thankful that they're around.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it seems like AEW is kind of like compared to like an ad-free shows where it's a big family, and it's so great to see where you go one, you go all, and that's something that I've seen like behind the curtain kind of things too, and that seems to be a little bit evident, and it definitely shows in the product.
Yeah, well, when you got the Dean Malenkos, myself, Billy Gunn, you know, you've got guys in the back, Jerry Lynn, guys that have been in the business over a long period of time. We've seen the evolution of the business. We're pulling for this company to really thrive and survive. And and you can see that we're branching out and we're working with other companies. And, I just think it just opens up a lot of fresh stuff for you as fans to watch. And we're going to do our best to keep you guessing and the surprises. And hey, when Sting walked out of that curtain, you could have knocked me over with a feather. So cool. And I'm one of the guys that saw him walk in the door of Jim Crockett Promotions the first day, very first day on the job, which was going to be the beginning of an incredible career. And to be standing in that ring with him in 2020, you can only imagine what was running through my mind.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I look forward to many more of these with you. Thank you.
As do I. Thanks for joining us.
Arn, are you telling us that you were as surprised as the rest of us to see Sting?
Nobody knew he was going to be there.
Oh, wow.
Tony Khan, let me tell you something, guys, and I don't lie to you. I have no reason to lie about anything. He keeps stuff close to the vest. And when he has a surprise coming, he makes sure it's a surprise. Nobody knew about it. It blew me away. And, you go back and I pull up, it's one of those things that happens and you can't remember exactly what you said, but it's crystal clear that, your memory of what happened when he came up to me first, when he got in that ring, and I just looked at him, and there was no emotion there on his part, but it was just like, I looked at that. I think I said unbelievable. And it was unbelievable. When they have the guys that should know what's coming up next don't know, that's a good thing.
I agree. It makes for some good entertainment, certainly. Up next, I have Josh Rosenbaum.
Hey, Double A. Good morning. How are you?
Great, Josh. How are you?
I'm great. I don't know if this was on purpose, but I've loved your costume change as the coach. Whenever you've been coming out recently, and take this the right way, it reminds me of Paulie from Rocky. I don't know if they've done that on purpose, but it looks like they put you in a white tank top under that nightmare tracksuit, and I always think of you as Paulie when you come out, so it always cracks me up.
Well, you know what? It's I appreciate it. I tell you what I figured out, and I'm not opposed to the coach. That was a Tony Khan creation, and I got it. And it was fine. It was something different because I really am a coach for Cody. I am a guy that we talk about stuff all day long about what he might do at night, and I'll maybe bring something up that he wasn't thinking of or didn't know or might not be receptive to, but it is a coach. Having to get a little bit more involved in some of this stuff, and be honest with you guys, at 62, I don't move like I once did, but I got to be able to get up and get around that ring. And if I have to slide in occasionally, I got to be able to, get in there and get up. That tracksuit provides me a lot more flexibility. To be honest with you, it's a really a simple reason for wearing it, is because I need to be able to get around better, and I am wearing that.
Well,
so.
I love it, and that leads to my question. I mean, we've heard about the training techniques of when you went through. Can you take us through a day in your son's training now that might be different from what we were raised on, that he's going to take in? And I'd love to see your son kick the crap out of Taz's kid in the future.
Well, I don't know about that, but I do know, and I hope you guys will be happy to know that the first thing, which he already had just growing up in this household and knowing the way I feel about people in the business, the way I feel about the fans, the way I feel about guys should earn their stripes, pay their dues. He is going to be someone that at least the first time you see him, he will have fundamentals to where they are firmly ingrained into him. He will be able to wrestle before he ever goes out over the top or climbs up to the top, or he may never even climb up to the top. Who knows? But he's going to be taught the fundamentals he's going to be more importantly than that, a respect for every wrestler that has stepped in a ring anywhere in the world prior to him. They deserve his respect because they are paving the way for young kids like him to possibly have a job in this industry. So he's being taught to respect the fans, to respect the other wrestlers. And I mean, the guy may have had one more match than him, but he deserves respect, and respect for the company, respect for the industry, and all of those things. And I'm just going to try to teach him. He's already pretty good athlete. He wrestled in high school. He played football in high school. Interesting note. He played left tackle at 170 pounds when everybody on the line was 320 and above.
Wow.
That picture will crack you up, and I'm going to get it posted online at some point. 330, 340, 310, all the way across, and you got this 170 pounder at left tackle, and they actually formulated some plays for him pulling and kicking out much like a guard would, because the kid just played mad because he was so small, and it was the only position that he could earn on his high school football team. So he played with a vengeance. He's a headhunter. He just didn't have the size that the other guys had. So I'm going to try to bring him along slowly and make sure that he has a good foundation, and win, lose, or draw. If he does make it, he will at least know his way around the ring. And you as a fan sitting there watching will know that he has spent countless hours with a lot of good people right now, and including myself, who can at least talk about psychology and why to do this. I call them the W's, why or why not. And it will make sense if nothing else. And we'll see what we got. So I appreciate you being interested, and hopefully, guys, if you would all just, in a thought, just pull for him, because I think he has something. And proud papa, nothing will be grander than see him step through the ropes for the first time. So
I know how you feel. My son is the singer, so he's going to be on Broadway, and your son is going to be in the Tokyo Dome one day, and we're both going to be proud papas.
Sounds
Thanks,
awesome.
Arn.
Thank you.
I muted myself. Thank you, Coach. Up next, we have a question from Anthony Pyrus. Anthony, how are you this afternoon?
I am doing fantastic. How are you guys doing today?
Fantastic.
Great.
Cool. Arn, I got three things for you. Number one, go Pats. Number two, Merry Christmas. Number three, most importantly, the Horsemen were, rumor and innuendo had it, they caused a riot from time to time. What was the scariest of all the riots that you were involved in?
Well, there's one that just nothing else is in second place. When we broke Dusty's leg in the Omni in Atlanta, I tried to remember this, and let me see if I can do the setup for you properly. I want to say Flair was wrestling one of the Russians.
Nikita.
Mm-hmm. The other Russians piled in.
Yep, after the match, yep.
Down came Dusty to help Rick.
Yep.
Ole and I came down. The weird combination of what was going on was Flair and Dusty didn't have a beef at that time, but the Andersons and the Rhodes have always had a beef.
Always did, always will, probably.
Oh, possibly underlying, you never know. You just never know. It's
yeah.
Pretty emotional, proud families, Andersons and Rhodes. So we decided, we were going to jump on Dusty in that cage. And it was a cage match, and we came in, shut the door, and we started into it with Dusty, and Rick, just something clicked, and he joined in. And when he joined in to start stomping the leg of the guy that just saved his ass, it did not get over very well.
13-year-old me wanted to jump through my TV and get at you guys.
I wish you could have seen the fans in the Omni. Now, the Omni was one of those perfect arenas where it was very bright on the ring and just around the ring, but the crowd was dark. So when I don't know if you guys get this part of it, but when the arena is dark, nobody can see you if you start shooting flaming arrows at the ring or you start throwing baseballs or liquor bottles. Nobody can see you. They don't know where it happened. And it emboldens people.
Yeah.
So they started running down Rock and Roll Express and Terry Taylor and different guys trying to climb that cage. And Ole and I started knocking them off. And buddy, when Ricky and Robert wasn't going to get it done and get it stopped, you could just feel those fans start forward. And
I noticed that barricade got closer and closer to the ring as this whole thing was happening.
Yeah, and it didn't happen in an instant. It was building. This was taking minutes. And I looked out as we opened that door, and it was about 15 across and about 10 deep of people that had come running from wherever that were jammed in their chest to back. And buddy, they just came forward, and before we could get out of the door, they shut the door and they were holding it shut. And I went, Jesus Christ, this is getting bad. So a couple of the baby faces came down and they got knocked off the cage, and that temperature went up. Had it not been, and I believe this to this day, had it not been for 10 Atlanta police officers who came down with their nightsticks and actually beat the fans back to give us enough of a aisleway to work our way. And folks, I've always said there's some tough fans out there, including the guys on my screen. They beat the ever-living piss out of us. It took about 20 minutes to get to the locker room now. There was probably, I would say, as many as 150 people actually getting involved in it physically. The others were just there to get in the way and prevent you from leaving. I thought they were going to kill us. Somebody hit me in the head with something. I don't know what it was, split me wide open, but every one of us were bleeding when we got to the locker room. And I don't mind telling you, it scared me to death. I thought I was going to die.
Absolute best times. Absolute best times. Thanks so much.
Incredible. Thank you.
Wow. Didn't see that one coming, but appreciate the question. And Art G, I'm going to appreciate yours as well.
Okay, thank you guys. So first of all, thanks, Lauren. I did catch it this time. I'm working right now.
Glad you can
First
make
of all,
it.
thank you. And Arn, thank you for being here. It's
Thank you.
honestly a pleasure.
Thank you, Art.
So I've got an interesting question for you. And this can go one or two ways. When the time comes for you to go to heaven, and St. Peter says you got to put on a match with either one opponent or you've got to age in a match between any two wrestlers to get into heaven, and it's got to be a 5-star match. Who are you picking?
Okay, you were breaking up, and I'm sorry. Could you just repeat that? I was getting bits and pieces. Can you repeat?
No problem. Sorry about that.
Okay.
So when you pass eventually and go to heaven, and St. Peter says you've either got to have one match in your prime with any wrestler, or you've got to agent a match with any two you can pick, who would you pick? It's got to be a 5-star match to get you in the door.
Wow. That's going to put a lot of pressure on me and my opponent, isn't it? Wow. You know, it's a go-to that a lot of guys go to, but he just was that good. And I will just say that he should probably get the credit, and that's probably going to be Ricky Steamboat. He never had a bad match that I ever saw. You know, prior to him actually coming to WCW, when he was healthy, I mean, I don't know if you saw the early Ricky Steamboat, you know, but what a body on that guy. What a performer on that guy. His selling was incredible, immaculate, and his wrestling IQ was just through the roof. There was nothing that he couldn't do in that ring, and he could, you know, his conditioning. He did get a little bit of a back injury there in WCW, which held him back a little bit, but anybody that he ever worked with, you can just look at any of his matches, and the guy he was just in a different stratosphere than the rest of us. And if that was going to be my ticket in, I guess I would have to count on Ricky.
That's awesome. Thank you, Arn, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
That was a fun question. Nick Mills, bring the heat.
Hi, Arn. How you doing?
Good, Nick. How are you?
I'm all right. Arn, I was watching the Undertaker documentary. He was talking about, you know, going through a period of a lack of confidence, and as a result, obviously the Roman Reigns match at WrestleMania didn't go to plan. And he talked about how, like, Ric Flair had the same thing, and he didn't understand it because, hey, it's Ric Flair. Did you ever have that in your career? And if so, or I guess if you saw a wrestler who was going through that, what would you say to them? Do they take a break? Do they step back? Or do they keep on going and hope that something clicks?
Was it a lack of confidence in his physical ability to perform, you think?
Good question. I think the match with Roman Reigns didn't go exactly the way it was to plan, and that was supposed to be his final match. So maybe it was a confidence in his own abilities. Maybe it was his physical as well.
Well, the two go hand in hand, Nick. If you're And I had two cracked vertebrae 2 different times in my career that put me out for 3 months at a time, rehabbing them back. And the first time I came back, I went, okay, you know what? I feel pretty good. I'm not 100%, but I might have been 85, 90% at that time. And you learn to live with that 85 or 90%. When I cracked my neck the second time and I came back, I went, okay, I can do pretty much everything that I could do before. I just don't feel as healthy. And when you come to the ring, when you step through the curtain, I know for me, and I know for Undertaker for sure, I can only imagine because of the groundswell of emotion when he comes through the curtain, it's at a different level. I mean, you're seeing something that's supernatural, and he always brought that to you from his entrance on. And every match that he had before he started getting injured, that guy, I mean, he was picking up guys. I saw him. I had his match with Mark Henry, and Mark Henry jammed Taker back in that corner and stepped up in that second buckle. Taker went up under him, powerbomb position, and I don't know if you guys remember this, walked him out of that corner and powerbombed him. What a feat of strength. It's incredible. So I know his health was good then, but when your health starts to inhibit the things that you're known for, by that time, walking the top rope, diving over the top, once a match sometimes, and all those things that Taker did that were so spectacular because the guy's so big guys don't do that. And when you're not able to do some of that stuff that you're known for and do it confidently, man, it puts a block right there, and it causes your creativity to slow down a little bit. Now, I'm speaking for myself. I know that Taker is a guy that you fans, have supported to the 20th power and stood behind him and, made him the legend that he is. And I see it in his eyes when he feels like he's let you down. The Roman Reigns match was, a time that I had that match, and I knew that Taker was, I knew he was dinged up. He wasn't going to say anything. I could just tell that the couple of days before the show, he was spending a little more time down by the practice ring by himself, stretching out and doing a lot of things that he might not have done before. And when you do the extra stretching, guys, I know everybody's probably, been there. The extra stretching is because you don't feel right and you're hurt and you feel like that's going to be something that you're going to have to do. And I feel like Taker probably, if he came through that curtain doubting himself at all, none of us would have known it, but you would have seen it in his performance. And, unfortunately, we all look at him as being superhuman and maybe not even human. Trust me, he's human. And we all run out of gas. We all have a shelf life. And when that shelf life runs out in this business, you can't go back and get it. And I got a feeling that's about where he is. And if he's made it, I got a feeling he's made a decision probably to have had his last match. And if he has, God bless him. He's one of the guys that is a corner post of this industry that people will be remembering and talking about for 100 years.
Amen to that. Just a really quick one before I go. Obviously, you said you were there when Undertaker came back through the curtain. Did he know that it was a bad match? Did he feel it?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think, if you don't judge him as critically as other matches, the Shawn Michaels 2-match series or any of those, if you just look at all the variables and you watch it and turn the sound off and just watch the match, it wasn't nearly as bad as he thought it was. But if it was at 4 stars and above for you guys, he feels like he failed. And I know him well enough to know that the main thing is getting it done in the fans' eyes.
Absolutely. I really appreciate it, Aaron. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Nick. Lauren, you are silent.
I should be.
Did you mute yourself again?
I did. I'm sorry. I have dogs and kids. It's Saturday at my house, everybody's house, but it's a little crazy. Safe with Rafe. How are things going in your neck of the woods?
They're going good. How about yours?
A little wild over here, but hey.
Same here. Hey, Arn, how are you?
Very good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for taking the time for us today. We really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you guys.
Absolutely. So we got a question. I grew up in Columbia, South Carolina, and that was definitely, that's right, stomping ground for WCW back in the day. That was a regular stop for you guys. And on an earlier episode, you had mentioned, I think you talked about stopping at the Township Auditorium before, back in Columbia. And when I was a kid and would go to the old WCW shows, one of the regular fans that was there, she was always in the front row, skinny old lady with short, you know exactly who I'm talking about, short brown hair. And
Spider. That was
Spider,
her nickname.
Right. And one of her other nicknames was Olive Oil because she looked just like olive oil. And one of the last shows that WCW did at the Township, Flair even called her out saying, Olive Oil, you've been booing me for 30 years. And it was just tremendous. And I wanted to know if you had any memories of her or any memories of the Township that you could share for me.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like, number one, the atmosphere in a lot of arenas, they don't have to be the biggest or the grandest, just the atmosphere. And the Township, was kind of built where there wasn't a bad seat in the place. It just like it kind of just like a bowl, it just, the people in the very top, if you're sitting in the cheap seats, it was like you were just looking right down at the ring. It was just an awesome atmosphere. And there was a stage and there was a big curtain across the stage. So there was places you could peek out from the stage and watch the matches. And I would always get there, get my boots on, get a cup of coffee and go peek through the curtain to make sure Spider was there. And because she had a couple of people with her, and man, she was determined to be part of the show. And some of us on every show, made sure that happened. And boy, one night she got kind of really wound up where it was like, I think it was Ole and I against the Rock and Roll Express, and threw Ricky Morton out of the ring, and he landed just about in Spider's lap. Now, this lady was up there in age, right? Would you say 80 maybe then?
Oh, yeah, easily, especially in the last days of like 2000, had to have been around 80. And even so, I think she was 80 for 40 years, but yeah.
She had my thing. She was 80 at birth, right? So I mean, Ricky rolled right over there just about at her feet, and I rolled out and I barked at her or something, made the mistake of barking at her, and I bent over to pick Ricky up. And buddy, I felt like somebody had stabbed me with a cattle prod. She took that cane of hers and broke it over my back. And buddy, it had some torque on it. I'm not kidding you. So I sold it for her, obviously, hell, I think it actually hurt. And we continued on and whatever the end of the match was. But at the end of the night, the back door back there, and she did this for the baby faces, she would bring them homemade baked pies, right?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and they looked tremendous. I was a little iffy about taking them for her in case she was smart enough to know all the bad guys were going to get a piece of that pie. That'd be a good chance to poison them. So I come out the back door, and bless her heart, she's standing there, and she looked at me and she handed me a pie. I think I was the first heel that ever got a pie. And she said, I hope I didn't hurt you too bad. And she meant it. She felt bad. She thought she had actually really put a dent in my career. And I said, no, but hey, don't ever try to pull that again. The cops were in on it. Everybody was in on it. Anybody else would have got taken to jail. She's just part of the show. And she was a national treasure for Columbia. You always made sure that even if you didn't involve her too much, and remember in those days, we were going to the towns every other week, probably we were there. So,
yeah,
we try to involve her, at least get out there and argue with her and make her part of the show. And you just knew that was a big part of her life. And she was awesome. We were all glad she was there.
Yeah, as a fan, we were all glad that she was there too. So thank you so much. I appreciate the time.
Yeah, man. Thanks for remembering that with me. That was fun.
Absolutely.
That was fun. And Rafe, it almost reminded me of our friend Gamecock Jesus. Gamecock Jesus.
Oh, yeah. All the basketball games. He's there. Yeah.
There you go.
He's there.
All right. Joining us today from Ireland, Dr. Steve Gannon. Top of the morning. Is it morning? You're muted.
All right. Thank you very much, Lauren. No, it's 5 o'clock, after 5 o'clock in the evening here, so it's okay for us to have a beer.
There you go. Time for a Guinness.
Hello, Mr. Anderson. Thanks very much for taking the time to do this.
You look really like somebody important. So I'm going to be on my toes.
I'm not at all, honestly. I'm fascinated by the psychology behind your work. And I'm just wondering, is there anything in particular in terms of the psychology behind what you've done that you're proud of, or that you look back and think that was really one of my favorite moments?
Well, I feel a little strange saying it, but it's out there, and it's, thank God there's a lot of old school wrestling fans that remember. I think my body of work now and the appreciation that all of you guys are kind enough to show me, I'm a lot more over now than I was when I wrestled. And I think part of that is people are going back and YouTube and whatever, and they're watching the psychology, and what they thought was, God, he doesn't do a whole lot of stuff. He's not real exciting, but he made everything look real. And when you can't I've never thrown a drop kick in 37 years, ever. because I knew it would look like crap. So one of the keys to this business is don't do what you can't do well, and don't try to have your opponent do something that he doesn't do well, because when it's all said and done, if you had a stinker of a match because the other guy blew it or you blew it, it means you both blew it. And it means you stunk it out for the people that are paying your salary, which are the fans. So I just tried to do things that I could make look impactful and without exposing myself as to not being very athletic. And to be honest with you, I just wasn't very athletic. And being able to work a hold and make it look like you're ripping a guy's arm out of socket, which I learned from Ole Anderson. He's the one that taught me up close and personal. Nobody better than him and Gene at that. And I just took and tried to add some excitement to it with some higher impact moves. Gourd Buster was my creation, if you remember that one. Spine Buster, which is copied probably more than any other move these days, is a spine buster. I stole the DDT from Jake. I went on record of saying Jake came up with it. Blatantly, who was working with a different company pretty much my whole career and his whole career, I just stole it from him. And I tried to put my twist on it, make it look a little different. And I just think that the one thing that I always tried to do, whether it was a boxer versus wrestler match with Johnny B. Bad or Brad Armstrong and just a regular match, or Dustin Rhodes or Barry Windham or the Road Warriors or Doom or Ron Simmons or whoever it was, I tried to study what did they do well, what do they not do well, and try to match up, the best I could and to feature what they really do well. And so when it's all said and done, my thought process was, hey, how do I bring the best out of my opponent? And I think and I hope that's probably what I'll be remembered for.
Wow. Thank you very much for that in-depth answer. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Arn, and thanks, Lauren.
Thank you, Doc.
Back to that Guinness. Up next, Amir Qureshi. How are you?
I'm good, Lauren. How are you?
Wonderful. Thanks. Meet my friend Arn.
Hi, Arn. It's an honor. It's an honor to meet you. Thank you for taking time to do this. My question is, do you have any? I'm from Washington State. Do you have any memories as a performer or as a producer of any shows in Washington that stick out to you?
Yeah, I think so. We did it when I was with WWF. We did a show in Portland, but the show prior to that was Boston. So we had a morning flight, and we're flying coast to coast, and obviously you make up the time on the flight across. Well, Haku, who is a great friend of mine, and everyone knows who Haku is, I think, and what he is and who he is, and he is the human Vegematic, folks. You couldn't hurt him if you threw him off a cliff. And that's to this day. So if you believe anything I say today, believe that. And as it turned out, we're in first class and sitting beside each other, and he's sick. And I didn't realize it the night before, but he's coughing and his chest congestion. It's the first time I've ever seen him, and he's really got either the flu or something, but really bad. And he looks terrible, and he's blowing his nose. Him with a hanky in his hands is worth the price of admission if you know the guy, because he don't sell nothing. So I said, got the flight attendant back, and I said, I know what'll help you. I got my granny came up with an old school deal, it's called a hot toddy. And it will make Dr. Steve Gannon, he gets it, right? You know what a hot toddy is. It's an excuse to get shit-faced, right? Just blame it on the flu. So, man, I said, ma'am, if you would, you see he's 300 pounds. We got to wrestle when we land there. He really needs to get well in this 5-hour flight. Could you just keep the hot toddies coming? Well, it was a little bit of lemon juice. It was bourbon and a little something else, honey or something was in there, a little bit of a mix, but it was stout. So he must have had 15 of those on the trip. And we go check in, and I get to rent a car, and we're driving and all. We got about an hour to kill. He takes a hot shower, and we stop by the liquor store, and we get the ingredients to make a hot toddy. Like 15 wasn't enough. He has a couple before we go to work, and we walk in the arena, and there was always a sheet right by the dressing room door of the order of events, the matches, when you were on, who your opponent was. And he got the word as he went in. He had originally thought it was going to be he and I in a tag match. And it turned out he's got Rick Martel in a 30-minute Broadway. Broadway time limit draw, folks. He's hammered. And I think when he went to his room, he shoveled down food on top of that. So he's hammered, he's sick, and he's got a belly full of food. Rick Martel is one of those guys that got up and down pretty good. You know, the pacing of his matches was pretty good. The guy almost had 5 heart attacks during that 30 minutes. He made it through the 30, came back through the curtain, and he used to call me Fat Man. He came through the curtain and collapsed and said, "Somebody go get Fat Man. Somebody go get Fat Man." They said, "Hawk, who's hollering for you?" I ran, and he had literally just cleared the curtain. And now this was Portland, I believe. And the curtain separated, and 5 feet inside of it was him laying there on his back wheezing. We couldn't get him up for probably 20 minutes. I think the original thing, did you say Washington?
Yeah, Washington State.
Is Portland close enough?
Yeah.
That's the one that I really remember from the West Coast out that way. Washington State, what were the towns that we would normally run out that way?
Seattle and Tacoma are usually the big ones. Like I know you've talked about it, I think before, that terrible Booker T, Buff Bagwell, WCW retry matches in Tacoma. Yeah.
Seattle at the old building. Yeah. I will be forever remembered for the stinker of a job I did on commentary for that match. Now, let me just say this, and then I will just take the blame, because I stunk. I had never done commentary. I was just informed the night before, you will be doing commentary on this match. No guidance, no training. When it got time, go out there, sit down beside Scott, and just have fun, do color commentary. I was petrified. New company, new circumstances, doing something you'd never done before. And let's just face it, folks, it was the shits. Probably the all-time worst performance that actually aired on television in history. So maybe that's the story from Seattle.
That whole thing was the shits, because that match was terrible. I personally didn't think your commentary was bad when I watched it. I was there live and I watched it back later. And that match was just terrible. So I think you had chicken shit to work with. So not a whole lot you could have done.
It's okay if we all agree, guys. Hey, in this business, you know, I've always found if you want to help a guy, when it sucks, tell him it sucks, but tell him why it sucks. That sucked. It will be known as sucking forever. And let's just all agree, my career actually took a forward jump having never done commentary ever again. I'm much more better at putting shows together and running shows and putting matches together and all that than I'll ever be on a mic. So there we go.
Thank you, Arn. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you being with us.
Arn, we're happy to have you on the mic at least once a week with Conrad Thompson. And up next is John Lopez.
Good morning, Mr. Arn. It's an honor to talk to you this morning. I started getting into podcasts because of Stone Cold Steve Austin, and in his podcast, he would talk a lot about how he holds you in such high regard as a person and as a performer. I just wanted to see if you have, like, if you could talk about how, like, your relationship was with him in your days at WCW, and if you ever worked with him as an agent in WWE.
Yeah, Steve Austin is one of those rare cats that comes along, guys, that what you see on camera is pretty much who he is. And, you know, I've said on other podcasts, whether it be The Rock or Hulk Hogan or Steve Austin or whoever these larger than life personalities are, they're pretty close to the human being. I mean, they're really close. And Steve Austin is one of those guys that when he first came to WCW, you know, he's just a guy that you knew liked to drink beer. He liked to fish. He liked to hunt. He liked to wrestle. He wanted to learn how to wrestle better. He had a great foundation, but he was still in that stunning Steve Austin phase. We were booked on a Japan. In those days, WCW was on a talent trade out with New Japan. So they booked Steve and I and Ron Simmons and Mike Enos. That's the four I remember right off the top of my head on a 3-week Japan tour. So when you go to Japan with somebody for 3 weeks and you're stuck together for that time in those small hotel rooms, those long bus drives, that coming out of the arena at night, no restaurants open, no food, you really get close, you know. And Steve and I were on that tour, and the second day or something, he tore his tricep, which is a bad injury, John, as you know.
Yeah.
Never having torn one, I can only imagine. But the guy never missed a day. He never complained. He got his therapy when he would get to the arena, whether it was ice, massage, getting it taped up, whatever. And he pulled those 3 weeks without ever missing a day. And that told me about his work ethic. And he did it with a smile. Now, mind you, because there were no restaurants in these small towns, you would do about 8 days in Tokyo. Then you would go out for 10 or 11 days or something to these very small towns. And when you came out of the arena, there was nothing open. It was all closed up. So we would just order like 3 cases of beer and we would sit in the lobby and just get hammered every night because the room was so small, no American TV. You're trying to watch Japanese TV. The room was barely big enough to get your bag in. And, you know, we would just sit out there and get hammered. And I started to learn about Steve, and he's just a straight up guy. You know, when he tells you something, it's because he means it. He has no reason to BS you. If he doesn't like you, he probably just won't speak to you. But if he does, he's funny. He's got this incredible work rate, and he came along at a time, let's just face it, guys, and Steve knows this, he'll tell you this, for a guy to be able to stick a finger, and we know what the finger is, in your boss's face and get away with it, every male in America got behind Steve Austin because every one of us want to go, oh yeah, to our boss. He got away with it. And those circumstances are what launched Stone Cold Steve Austin to put him in a position to be that megastar that he became. And he's just a straight up guy. Must have drank 1,000 beers with the guy. Loved wrestling, him and Pillman, Rick and I. You know, there's nothing but good things that I can say about him. But he's never stopped being a man's man. And that's what I used to call him. He was Steve McQueen. You know, in the wrestling business, he was a man's man. So that's
thank you so much.
You betcha.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. All right, Arn, I got just a few more. Can you hang in there with me?
You betcha.
Thank you. Andrew, you're up next. I'm sorry, I just double clicked you and muted you back.
It's all right, Lauren. You got me?
Gotcha.
All right. How you doing, Arn?
Very good, Andrew. You?
I'm doing well. In case anybody cares, Northwestern's up 10-3 in the Big Ten championship game. So
nice.
There's that. But I wanted to ask you, you've spoken a lot about the match with Rick back in 95. And of course, it gets kicked off at the Clash with the 2-on-1 against Vader. And in the match, you hit Vader with the spine buster. Well, fast forward to Fall Brawl, and the decision to end the match after Pillman hits the kick is with the DDT. Is there a reason the DDT went instead of the spine buster in that particular match?
I wanted something that was as quick as possible coming off the kick on the head. So it really felt like Rick didn't have a chance. He didn't have a chance to recover. It happened so quick. The referee really didn't have a chance to see it. He might have heard it, but the whole idea was, the only way to come out of that thing, because the crowd was split 50-50, I think 50% him for me. We wanted to walk out of there with a screw job. And that was the best thing we could come up with. Rick was fine with taking the bump. I don't know that I ever spine busted Rick. And some stuff, it's funny. Each one of us have certain moves that we're not comfortable with. He didn't volunteer it, and in a match of that magnitude, he's Ric Flair. He's in control. It's what he wants. That's what we're going to do. He never mentioned it, and I would have thought if he wanted to do it and he would have felt like it would have fit somewhere, he would have suggested it. So I just let it go, and that's what we came up with, and that worked.
I got you. No, it was a great finish, but I only asked because when you hit Vader with the spine buster back in August, the crowd just popped because, you're spinning this 400-pound man around and slamming him. And then, like you said, it was more shocking when you beat Ric Flair, not to be disparaging, of course, but when you guys stole it from him, at Fall Brawl with the DDT.
Yep. Well, and I'll take it. I didn't, beating Ric Flair right in the middle with my finish. I don't know what you would have accomplished, but Brian was already disliked. A lot of people did not want him to be part of the Horsemen. Some did, most didn't. So we took the fact that he wasn't liked by a percentage of the audience, and we just tried to come up with something. I didn't want it to look spectacular, and if I say so myself, God bless Leon, that looked spectacular. Spine buster and Vader, because he was enormous.
Yes,
and that's what we were shooting for that night, that we had a chance to win this thing. And I think Spinebuster and Vader, it was such a unbelievable thing that I don't think anybody thought I was that strong or that athletic. Vader, how athletic he was, but a combination of everything. And it was as smooth as if it was Brad Armstrong. So we're telling two different stories. And the one that night was to give us a chance to win. And then obviously the next one was a rotten thing to do to Rick.
Gotcha. Well, I appreciate it. And you all have a Merry Christmas, Arn.
Thank you. Keep watching that football game. Are you watching the Northwestern game right now?
Yeah, I've got it on, but I'm paying more attention to this, but just giving everyone a score update that Ohio State is behind.
Yeah, I'm a huge football fan, so thank you for that.
Yes, sir.
We certainly appreciate the update. Arn, I'm really sorry that you're a huge football fan and you like the Georgia Bulldogs. That must be really hard. I'm so sorry to hear it. Eros, you're up next.
Hold it, Arn. Hold it before we go any further. Georgia is the only team, it seems like, in the country that can play all these awesome SEC teams. And if they lose 2 games, they had a failure of a year. How does that happen?
Because there are teams in the SEC who don't lose 2 games. That's how that works.
If you're telling me you're siding with that Conrad Thompson dipshit and bag Roll Tide, I'm going to come over and egg your house.
I thought you were going to say spine buster me. I got a little nervous.
You probably know the counter, or you'd kick out. I'll
Maybe
just
so. Maybe so.
egg your house from afar.
There you go. My husband will commiserate with you on the Georgia Bulldogs nonsense. He's been whining about it for a couple of weeks now. Sorry to hear it, both of you, but your team is trash as usual. Eros, how are you?
Thank you, Lauren. How are you?
See how she just cut off too? I don't even get a rebuttal.
You can do anything you want. Don't egg my house.
Counterpoint, I'd like to see you egg her house.
No.
Well, and the third counterpoint upon thinking about it is I'd rather just scramble the eggs and just eat them here. So I rethunk it.
I love it. I love it.
Double A, how are you this morning?
I'm good. I like that shirt.
Well, thank you. More specifically for you.
Thank you.
Came representing the home team.
All right.
I was recently watching the Ric Flair and the Four Horsemen video. I love going back and watching the old promos, especially your promos. So the question I have for you today is, if you know you're doing a promo against a particular opponent, and have you ever been in a situation where you're like, I don't know what I'm gonna say about this guy? Like, what can I do to make this rivalry stand out? Or if it's someone you know really well that you're like, oh boy, he's a good guy, but how do I bring him down or make myself look better in this promo?
Always had a rule that I stuck by. It didn't matter who it was, what shape, what position they were in the company, whether they were underneath guy, middle guy, top guy, what their size was. I always tried to pick out the positives. Everybody has positives. If he's a small guy, hey, the guy's got the nuts to work in a company and compete on a daily basis with the likes of the Steiners, Steve Williams, Harry Gordy, the Road Warriors, you name it. And I would try to feature the positives and build up your opponent, because the stronger you make your opponent, no matter the outcome of the match, if he beats you, well, a guy overachieved and he beat you. If you say a guy's too fat or too small or too old, and that old fat guy just beats you, what does that make you look like? So the rule of promos for me was build your opponent up. Let the world know that you're not 100% that you can beat this guy. He has this, and this going for him. But even 80% of me believing I can beat this guy is going to be enough, because here's why. And I'm that much better because of this. So there are no negatives. And that always seems, you just build your opponent up and find something positive to point to. And that's what I tried to stick with, and things about their personal life, without getting into their family and all that. Maybe it's this guy likes to play a violin in his spare time, or, he plays badminton with something, anything that you can find to pull forward and pick on and keeping it in good taste. It lets you know a little bit about your opponent, and it's the truth.
Appreciate that. That puts everything into a better perspective. So,
yep, it's just a rule of thumb. Have respect for that guy, because you never know. You run him down, you make him a piece of crap. Number one, if he is a piece of crap, how did he get on television? And furthermore, how did he get a job working for the same company you do? If he's that bad and he works for the same company I do, I must not be that good. It just causes thought. It provokes thought.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. That's an awesome That's an awesome insight. And just wanted to say happy holidays, Merry Christmas to you and your family, as well to everybody else out there in ad-free shows.
Same to you, buddy. Thank you very much. Appreciate the question.
Thank you, Eros. Rajiv in the comments has said this has been promo class with Arn Anderson, and we're here for it. So thank you for that. Vin E, how are you?
Good, thanks, Lauren.
You're
Hello,
welcome.
Arn.
How are you?
How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good. I appreciate you doing this again. It's an honor to talk to you. I met you in Tully at Starcast, the last one in Chicago. And I still think you guys are the best my favorite tag team of all time. Best tag team of all time. It was just great meeting you guys. You're incredibly nice. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So I had a question. Back in like the 90s, 94, you were in ECW and Philadelphia. You had a match with, you were paired with Terry Funk against Sabu and Bobby Eaton. What was your experience in ECW? I mean, it's kind of a interesting pairing in a tag team match. Sabu's style was very different from everyone else. What was your experience in ECW and your thoughts on Bobby Eaton, who I think is one of the best, most underrated wrestlers?
Well, Bobby is one of the kindest men you'll ever meet. He has the purest heart of any guy you will ever meet. And he's also probably one of the top 5 workers in the world of all time. If you look at his body of work, his consistency of being able to pull at least a passable match out with anybody that steps in the ring with him, Bobby is just phenomenal. And the story that goes behind us being booked out, and that's what happened, is the company booked us out for Todd Gordon to work with ECW. It was 1 or 2 shots or something. And that was going to be the match. It was that they were building to. It was Terry and I against Bobby and Sabu. And it was during that time, I believe, where they were going through the Bill Watts leaving the company and the next guy coming into the company, and somebody booked us out and whatever the deal was. Well, as you know, Bobby and I's styles are not ECW. We don't jump out of the ceiling and land on each other. We don't hit each other with flaming ball bats and all that stuff. We're wrestlers. And when I got there, we, started talking to Sabu a little bit and Terry a little bit, and started kind of seeing what was in their head. And that was their company. We were the outsiders coming in. We were just passing through. We were there for a shot or two, and that was it. So I don't blame them for being selfish, ambitious, trying to get the most they could out of the 2 WCW guys that had invaded, their company. And so they worked something out amongst them, unbeknownst to us, that they agreed they would start the match. Well, they fought all over the arena. The first, ding, 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 they fought all over the place. And if I'm not mistaken, Bob Eaton and I stood there on the apron for 4 or 5 minutes. And they rolled back in the ring. They're both bleeding. And in their proverbial kiss my ass, this is our company way, they rolled over and tagged us both in and stepped out on the apron. Now think about that. If you're that guy that's been standing there for 5 minutes. So we step in, we lock up. Bobby goes, "Ooh, what are we going to do, Art?" I said, "Grab a headlock, Bobby. Take me over." And we laid there for 5 minutes. That's what we call, gentlemen, in this business, a Lauren, cover your ears. Fuck you. Nobody falling out of the ceiling on me. I'm not falling out of the ceiling on anybody. You guys want to show your ass and show us what ECW was about? Well, that's well and good. That's not what we do. And we laid there so long, believe it or not, The crowd finally got with it, if nothing but to get us off our ass and do something. And then we ran a couple of high spots, tagged out, got through the match, got through the finish. It was just one of those things that occurs in the business. It's a way of showing each other what message you're trying to send, and I got it. Like I said, we were just passing through, but there's several ways to skin a cat. They had theirs, we had ours.
All right. Thank you so much, Arn. Fascinating. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Super cool, right? Up next, I think this is the last one. Let me know in the chat if there's anyone else. Adam O'Neill, thanks for hanging in there with us.
Thank you, Lauren. How are you today, Aaron?
Where you at, Adam?
Ireland.
Second one from Ireland. Do you guys know each
other? No, we only met there. Was it 2 weeks ago? I think we only met on one of these Zooms. So there's actually a few Irish kind of on different tiers. So we're slowly but surely taking over.
Well, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it.
No bother at all. First of all, I apologize if this question's been asked before. I don't know, so I'm just going to ask it anyway. But like, since you kind of retired, has there been there's obviously been kind of lots of like different types of matches that have been created since. Is there ever like a match type that you're watching since that you're like, oh, I wish I wrestled in that kind of match?
There's some that I'm glad that I didn't have to wrestle in. That might be simpler. Scaffold match, no chance. No chance. TLC, guys, is not one of my favorites, just from the fact that, believe it or not, it may be black, but I still have a heart. And when I see talent in a match that they really have no control over, and you can't tell how a table's going to break when you go through it, how a ladder is going to break, if a ladder is going to slip, if it's going to be, you hit somebody with a chair, you got to have it held properly, hit them with the flat part of it. And even then, it really hurts. TLC matches are one of those matches that I expect everybody in the match to get hurt. And I'm talking injured, not hurt. I should probably phrase that. I expect everybody to get injured in those, and the degree of difficulty and violence that are involved in them. That's one of those that I think we could have done without in the industry. Now, it's great for the fans, but it's like anything else. If you have two on a given show, one is going to take away from the other, which means they're putting themselves at risk. There's only one way to swing a chair. There's only one way to fall off a ladder. There's really several ways to go through a table, but the fact is, once you go through a table, you've went through a table. Those type matches are just, risk versus reward. Time will tell.
Okay, and just to follow up to that, so you're saying that you don't really like kind of TLC matches. So did you find it hard being an agent on them type of matches?
You know what? I never was. Because it's not my forte. I usually all of Cena's stuff, all of Randy Orton's stuff, a lot of Batista's stuff. More of the storytelling aspect from building a match, a wrestling match. That's the ones that I would take, because that was my strong suit, psychology. The Dean Malenkos and the Michael Hayes and all those guys, they were the producers that Fit Finley, guys that just, they had an eye and an ear for that type stuff, and their creativity level was way above mine on those particular matches.
Okay, perfect. Well, I appreciate it, Aaron, and I hope you and your family have a good Christmas.
Same for you. Hope to be getting over there sometime, seeing you guys live, huh?
Hopefully.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
You. Bye now.
All right. Thank you, Adam. Arn, we've had two more come out of the woodwork. You got a few minutes?
Okay. Yeah.
You're so sweet. Wade, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Doing really well.
What's going on, Arn? How are you? First and foremost, did I see is that a Panther shirt you got on?
It is.
All right, representing the Panther. Well, I like it.
You got something on your hat there? I can't make it out. Oh.
The Panthers logo right there.
Where are you? Where are you at?
I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Well, we're neighbors.
I mean, essentially, right? I'm kind of around the Speedway, so around that area, more in Concord.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, man. Well, great.
So, yeah. So I was just going to ask, I guess you kind of hit on Brian Pillman a little bit. So is he someone, I guess, you kind of think had his career obviously been a little longer, not died as early? He was kind of one of the first people I really saw growing up that was into some of the more like shoot related stuff or psychological thing of playing the fans. Do you think he would have ever potentially kind of led to be more of a main event, like top draw, being one of the top guys, or where do you kind of see his career going had he had a longer career?
Number one, Brian was an incredible athlete. You know, he played on the Suicide Squad in the NFL, for God's sakes. That should tell you about it, kickoff team. You know, he went down and got cracked in the ear hole many times. And he was a good performer, and I thought that character was, to this day, I don't know if he was working us, how much of that was Brian, how much of that was, real, how much was him just acting like a loose cannon. No one will ever know. But I tell you what, he had everyone guessing. And when you get pulled that off, you're well on your way. Now you take that and combine it with his athletic ability. Brian he looked like a crazy man. You just looked at his eyes and you looked at that hair all over his head, and just the way he talked, he had that raspy voice. Everything led you to believe that he was a psychopath. And I think, for that time, the door was wide open for him to go all the way to the top. I think it was a tragic death. And it just makes you sick to your stomach of what could have been. Plus, I was friends with Brian, as much as anybody could be without being a running buddy. I just, I really respected him, and he was funny, and backstage in the locker room, he was a lot of fun. It just sad that he got gone so soon.
Cool. I appreciate your time, Arn, and hope you have a good holiday.
Okay, you too, sir. Thanks.
Glad you could make it in today, Wade. And finally, it's Henry Ivingham.
How are you today, Arn?
All right, my man. You look familiar. Have you been on one of these with us before?
I was actually on the first one. I was the one that asked you the question about, I think it was Super Bowl 91, 92, when you had that match for the NWA title.
Yeah, okay. Bingo. Yep.
It's just been a while. Not too bad. I'm actually kind of glad I got to be part of this today. Most of these I don't get to be because of the hectic work schedule I have. My question today is actually fairly simple, and it repeats something I asked last week. Last weekend on Saturday, the top guys got to spend some time with Mike Chioda. We watched the Hogan Rock match from WrestleMania 18, and I want to ask you the same question I asked him. With the recent passing of Pat Patterson, I know you spent a year in WWF as a performer, and then after WCW closed, you went and became a road agent for 17, 18 years in WWE. Do you have any fond memories or stories of Pat Patterson? He was a go ahead.
No, go ahead.
He was a very influential person, and Bruce Pritchard told a lot of stories about him on his own podcast, and I was honestly curious if anybody else that's within the podcast network had any stories of him from a different perspective other than Bruce's.
Well, the time that we were hired, Pat was probably a year or two from going on hiatus. I mean, he was still there, and he had his, he was going to the meetings and all that stuff, and he was producing matches. We had just gotten there, and we were down on the bottom level matches, the WCW producers. We were just getting our feet wet, learning the company, learning a lot of things, that we didn't know and ways that they did business. So our paths didn't cross that much. Pat was always with the top guys. He was with Rock. He was basically Rock's producer, and Rock had a group of some brilliant minds around him, and he's a brilliant guy on top of that. But we were just, Pat and I would never work together on matches and stuff of that nature. And then a couple of years, he was decided he didn't want to work much. So we would only see Pat every 3 or 4 months. And he would pop in and give his opinion. And of course, Vince valued his opinion, and he should have. And Pat was just responsible, I think, from a lot of the stuff that, Royal Rumble and different ideas, unique matches and unique things that occurred while we were on the competing company. So, it was one of those things that Pat's legacy, I think, would be more of what happened right before they bought the company and right after, but more so prior to that, the ideas that he had to, for WWE before we got there. So not a lot of cross-pollination. And of course, we didn't travel together or anything like that. So I don't really have anything interesting about Pat other than his legacy, I guess, will speak for itself.
That actually was a good answer. I wasn't expecting much because I didn't know how much the WCW people actually integrated with the WWE people once WCW folded. So that was actually, I thought, a very good answer. Thank you very much, and Merry Christmas, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Henry. Always a pleasure.
Fantastic. Arn, you have been so generous with your time today. We love hanging out with you. Come back anytime to all of our wonderful.
Hey guys, thanks to everybody for taking time out of your day. It's just one of the ways we like to say thank you. It's been a rough time, been a rough year, and all we can do is stick together and support each other and try to make each other laugh from time to time.
Absolutely.
Right.
We are
Happy holidays, Christmas.
Yes. Merry Christmas to you.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, guys.
Thank you, top guys. We'll see you at
Arn.
the next one. Have a good night.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money, it's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.